Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are plunging deep into the source materials surrounding a missing persons case that, well, it held a community captive for 23 really emotionally draining days. We are focusing on the journey of 36-year-old Whisper Owen and her 8-month-old daughter, Sandra McCarty.
And we're starting maybe not where you'd expect. We're jumping right to the end, the moment of absolute heart-stopping confirmation. The search team, they'd finally located the vehicle, and the message relayed, it's right here in the source docs, was just car confirmation only right now. Windows down. He's going to go back down and do a better assessment now.
Wow, just like that.
Just like that. And that single piece of information the vehicle found, that was the chaotic, almost terrifying pivot point. Suddenly, it wasn't a search anymore. It was grim, high-stakes recovery logistics.
That is the turning point. And our mission today, really, is to trace every agonizing step that led the family and the searchers to that moment. Because this wasn't, a straightforward investigation. It was a search that forced volunteers, family members, to connect dots across hundreds of miles, spanning multiple counties.
From Fresno, where they were last seen.
All the way up toward their Sacramento destination.
Oh.
And we've got a unique stack of sources here: family interviews, volunteer search logs, some critical technical data. It reveals a really complex picture.
Yeah, and the core question we need to tackle today, it sounds simple, but it's really not. How did a routine trip home, maybe 3 hours up Highway 99, how did that morph into a 23-day jurisdictional nightmare and end in a catastrophic accident on some unfamiliar back road?
Right. And maybe even more critically, what specific technical breakthroughs, the kind that, let's be honest, law enforcement sometimes struggles to access or prioritize, what allowed these expert, non-official search teams to pinpoint the exact final location?
It's a powerful story, this one. It's about technology meeting just relentless volunteer dedication.
Okay, let's unpack this. We could start with the personal stakes, those final hours. Whisper and Sandra left Fresno July 15th around 5 p.m. They had been visiting Whisper's mother, Vicky Torres. Plan was simple: get to Sacramento.
But the context around that departure is just critical. Why leave so late? And why was she in such a hurry to leave Vicky's place?
That's what the sources say about that.
Well, it seems it was all centered on the baby's well-being. Sandra, the 8-month-old, she'd just had her shots, was running a fever. And the place itself added to the stress. Vicky's home was small, a 1-bedroom. Vicky herself described it as just not set up for the baby.
Okay.
So Whisper was apparently really anxious, wanted to get home before Sandra got real fussy, needing things the small house just couldn't provide.
And we can't overlook Whisper's own health situation here. The source material notes she had this heavy pre-existing risk factor, a history of stroke-level blood pressure after the pregnancy.
That's right. She kept her main doctor down in Fresno, which tells you she needed pretty close monitoring.
So you combine that, a feverish baby, a mother driving late at night with a serious medical risk. The journey started from a place of, well, extremely high stress.
Absolutely. And that stress, the medical, the emotional, it was compounded by several red flags, and these flags basically dictated her route choices.
Okay, this is where the legal pressure comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whisper was driving without a valid license, and maybe even more critically, she had an active warrant out of Sacramento for child endangerment.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And on top of that, the car itself was a liability. It had one broken headlight and an alignment issue that apparently made the car pull noticeably to one side.
So, okay, you stack those factors: no license, a warrant that could get her detained, driving in the dark with a bad headlight, a wonky alignment, and a sick baby. Highway 99 is just, it's off the table for someone trying to avoid attention. She had to be actively trying to avoid any kind of traffic stop.
That's the critical insight, right? The decision to avoid the main highway wasn't about convenience. It was this desperate, self-protective calculation driven purely by the fear of getting pulled over by CHP or anyone.
If she takes 99, she's totally exposed. Patrols, high speeds, scrutiny.
But by diverting onto back roads, she thought she was minimizing her risk of a traffic stop, even though, obviously, she was taking unfamiliar, slower, and ultimately much more dangerous roads.
And the sources confirm she deviated almost immediately. The last confirmed traffic camera sighting was in Atwater. 8 p.m. That's 3 hours after leaving Fresno.
3 hours into a trip that should have been almost over by then.
So what did that Atwater footage show? Anything useful?
Yeah, it provided some crucial behavioral confirmation. It was high-def footage. Showed Whisper pulling over, taking Sandra out, changing her diaper, putting her back in the car seat, and then leaving. And they were definitely alone in the car. So this little 15-minute stop, It confirms two things. One, she was actively tending to the baby, focusing on Sandra's comfort. And two, those first hours of the trip were already high stress, probably involved multiple stops because the baby was uncomfortable.
But here's the first big navigational mystery, right?
Yeah.
The next time the vehicle is definitively spotted is in Waterford, Merced County.
Exactly. Water.
If she's trying to get to Sacramento, even avoiding 99 maybe, she should be way past Merced by 8 p.m., not diverting east like that.
Totally off the direct route north. And this is where the family's intimate knowledge became really essential to the search hypothesis. Whisper's brother, Richard, he mentioned this repeatedly. Whisper was not geographically oriented. She thought in terms of immediate directions. Turn left here, turn right there, not big picture stuff like north, south, east, west.
So if she lacked that kind of intuition, she'd be utterly reliant on technology, GPS.
Completely.
So the thinking was, she must have been following a GPS, but how does GPS pick that kind of route so far off course?
Well, the search teams had a couple of ideas. Either the car's built-in GPS had bad data, or maybe the navigation disc was missing.
Which they did confirm later, right? The disc was out.
Right, the disc was out. Or the more likely scenario, they thought, was that she was using her phone, and maybe she'd activated a specific filter on the app.
And that's what the later technical breakthrough confirmed.
Exactly, which we'll definitely get into. But yeah, spoiler alert. She was using her phone GPS, and she had explicitly set it to avoid highways.
Wow. So that need to stay hidden, combined with driving on dark, unfamiliar roads, that was the recipe for disaster.
She was sacrificing road safety for perceived legal safety. A terrible trade-off.
Okay, that makes a grim kind of sense. But now we have to shift focus to the period right after she disappeared, those first 23 days, defined by delays, coordination failures, just compounding the family's agony.
Yeah, the delays were heartbreaking and honestly, potentially costly in terms of finding them sooner. The first major failure was just basic police work. The license plate wasn't even run until a staggering 36 hours after she was reported missing.
36 hours. In a missing persons case with an infant, that's devastating. That time gap is huge.
It's critical time lost. And the bureaucratic mess didn't stop there?
No.
Not at all. The case became like a hot potato, initially reported to Fresno Sheriff, then passed to Sacramento, then somehow punted back to Fresno PD. Fresno PD claimed they had a special task force for these things, but Richard, her brother, was told directly by an officer, and this is noted in the sources, that the reality was different. There wasn't really a dedicated missing persons task force for this situation. All the available resources were just overwhelmingly pointed towards drug and gang issues in the county.
You included a really stark comparison in the source material about this prioritization problem.
Yeah, Richard detailed it. There was this guy wanted for like a stolen vehicle, and he had multiple task forces. The gang task force and the stolen car task force fully mobilized, actively hunting him down. Meanwhile, for a mother and an 8-month-old baby who were simply missing, the manpower allocated was minimal.
It just shows a systemic issue, right? About resource distribution in big counties when a case doesn't immediately scream organized crime or high-profile felony.
And this situation perfectly illustrates the difficulty of county-to-county cooperation, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If she's already moving into Atwater, which is Merced County, and then maybe Stanislaus County, Fresno-based law enforcement just struggles to cross those lines and get timely info.
Those jurisdictional boundaries, they create so much friction. A Fresno detective might not prioritize or even have the quick legal means to compel info from traffic cams or local businesses in Atwater or, say, Escalon. And that gap is exactly what these volunteer organizations are getting so good at filling now, because they operate across those boundaries without needing local subpoenas or formal interagency agreements. But beyond the logistical failures, the family was dealing with something else. Too intense scrutiny and suspicion, which apparently slowed down the initial LE response even more.
This is a really crucial and difficult part of the story. Richard describes, a history of a broken home. Whisper basically stepped up, raised him from when he was maybe 7 or 8. They grew up relying heavily on each other, and they were both committed, really committed, to doing better for their own kids. But that family history carried a serious paper trail.
And law enforcement focused heavily on that past.
They did. That history included Richard's own past charges: drug, arms trafficking. The baby's father, Bobby, he had drug charges too. And even Whisper's mother had a past kidnapping charge from years ago, apparently stemming from a messy custody fight.
So this collective background.
It led law enforcement to treat the whole case with deep suspicion. They even asked the family this just agonizing question: are you sure somebody didn't take her to get back at you guys? They were essentially looking at it as maybe a retaliatory kidnapping or even something staged because of their
That
past.
must have been unbearable, trying to search for your loved ones while being treated like suspects.
Absolutely. But Richard, he strongly defended Bobby, the baby's father, and Bobby's alibi was confirmed as, quote, airtight.
How so?
Law enforcement cloned Bobby's phone data. They checked Ring cameras, confirmed he was home the entire night. He wasn't just cleared, he was actually integral to the search.
So far from being involved.
He was actively coordinating things, driving search leads, using every resource he had, often paying out of his own pocket to hire search teams. He was apparently distraught. So the assumption of foul play, based purely on old charges, it completely misdirected the initial official efforts.
We also need to understand Whisper's character, especially in the context of the accident hypothesis. Given the stress, the feverish baby, was it possible she just lost her temper? Did something happen in the car?
Richard's testimony on this is really clear, and it sounds compelling in the source material. He confirms Whisper just wasn't high-tempered. She had this specific way of coping. She'd shut down or just stop talking before getting aggressive or angry.
Okay.
He described her as, if anything, overly permissive with her kids, patiently tolerating weeks of colic, fussiness, that kind of thing. The idea that she would suddenly snap or that an accident happened because of some violent outburst like shaking the baby, it seems extremely unlikely based on everything known about her demeanor and history with her kids.
So that really points decisively toward an accident caused by stress, the unfamiliar roads, poor visibility, not, frustration boiling over.
Exactly. It strengthens the accident theory significantly.
So the volunteer teams, they operated under that assumption, accident caused by getting lost, taking the wrong turn. And they started systematically ruling out potential ditch locations along those back roads.
Yeah, their early efforts were really rigorous. They knew she was off 99, so they checked numerous lateral canals, rivers, stretching from Waterford up towards Oakdale. They ruled out specific spots because the water just wasn't deep enough. Some of those shallow laterals were only like 4 or 5 feet deep, not enough to hide a car.
And they also ruled out areas closer to Sacramento, places she actually knew well.
Exactly. They dismissed the boat ramp at Jacobs Park in Riverbank, and significantly, they ruled out the American River area right near her Sacramento home. Richard noted that the American River, that was her comfort zone. If she had intended self-harm, which, again, the family strongly dismissed, that's probably where she would have gone.
Right.
But for an accidental ditching, the American River was just too far away, given the time of that last known sighting in Atwater, and the probable route she took after. They had to assume the incident happened somewhere between Waterford and the outskirts of Sac.
And the teams recognized a really tough environmental challenge they faced in actually finding an entry point off the road.
Yeah, this detail gets overlooked a lot in these kinds of searches. If a car goes off a dark road lined with brush into a canal, the brush, the tree limbs, they often just bounce back after maybe 7 to 10 days.
Hides the spot completely.
Completely hides the entry point from anyone just looking from the roadside. So standard roadside checks. Pretty ineffective after just a week or so. They knew they needed technology sonar or a really precise location tip to overcome that environmental camouflage.
And that is the perfect transition, because the search hit this painful wall until that technical breakthrough finally gave them a precise, undeniable target.
Yeah, after 23 long, stalled days, Fresno police finally managed to secure the subpoena for Whisper's phone data.
God.
And the data they got back, it was immediate, actionable gold. It effectively confirmed the family's backroads hypothesis.
Okay, here's where the tech details get really interesting for anyone following these cases.
Yeah.
What was the absolute key discovery from her Google account data?
The absolute key was in the navigation settings. The data showed Whisper had actively, manually set a filter in her phone's navigation app to avoid highways.
Actively set it.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
This is crucial. It goes beyond just, avoiding tolls or something. You have to deliberately go into the settings and select that preference in most map apps. It confirms the level of intentionality she had about staying hidden, staying off the main roads, avoiding official scrutiny.
She was knowingly trading highway efficiency for backroad anonymity.
That's exactly it. The technology confirmed that fear was the primary driver of her route choice. But the most critical piece of data, that was the final phone ping itself.
The location and time.
The definitive time-stamped location. Her phone pinged near the intersection of Victory Road and Highway 120. This was between 10:07 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. on the night she disappeared, July 15th. And here's the essential analytical detail. The phone's location data showed she was stationary for approximately 20 minutes at this location,
Stationary for 20 minutes.
before the phone battery finally died, about 21 minutes after that last ping.
What does that 20 minutes stationary suggest to you?
Well, it speaks volumes about her probable state of mind, right? She was pulling over, she'd been driving for 5 stressful hours, the baby was sick, she was on unfamiliar dark roads, carrying all that stress about her health, the warrant. She was likely completely turned around, maybe overwhelmed, pulling over to check the map again, tend to the baby one last time, maybe just pause and try to figure out where she was. It seems highly probable.
And that single location victory in Highway 120 near Escalon that became the absolute geographic bullseye for the search.
They boxed her in. The volunteer team, armed with this precise 20-minute stationary window, immediately went into hyper-focus mode. They started combining this hard data with local intel.
And this is where community engagement really made a difference.
It totally did. They put out feelers locally asking for any footage. A local volunteer named Chris came forward with really crucial camera footage from a BJ's store nearby on Waterford Highway. It showed a car matching Whisper's, crucially, with one broken headlight passing by at 9 or 8 p.m.
Okay, so that confirms her direction of travel and timeline, leading right into that ping area.
Exactly. And then the South San Joaquin Water District provided the final piece of the puzzle, the physical constraint on the search box.
How so?
Their security camera footage up on North Victory Road showed she did not travel further north past a specific gate on that road. That gate was only about 2,000 feet north of the intersection.
So she couldn't have gone further up Victory.
Correct. Which meant she was definitively restricted to this small, contained canal area right at the intersection of Victory Road and Highway 120. The phone data, the local volunteers footage, the water district camera, it all pointed to that one spot with incredible precision.
The stage was completely set. The team moved their sonar equipment immediately to that canal right there at Highway 120 and Victory Road.
And there was this additional layer of just tragic context that really heightened the probability of this specific location. Mercedes, who was a colleague's mother helping with the search, she had actually lost her own son in a car accident at that exact location years before.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was apparently a known, notoriously dangerous spot. High speed, tricky turn onto the bridge over the canal. Cars failing to navigate it wasn't uncommon.
So the sonar scan, it picked something up pretty quickly.
Almost immediately,
Yeah.
right underneath the bridge itself, the sonar reading showed an object distinctly wider than the concrete bridge pillar it was near, sitting in about 8 to 9.5 feet of water. The signature was unmistakable, a probable vehicle.
And this is where the specialized expertise of Angel's Recovery came in.
Exactly. Han, a specialized swift water diver from Angel's Recovery, based out of Stockton, he was on site. Juan handles these kinds of cold, swift water cases frequently. He immediately suited up and went down to confirm the find.
And his confirmation was fast.
Rapid and incredibly specific.
Right.
Based on all the known features of Whisper's car they'd briefed him on,
What did he confirm right away?
he confirmed it was Whisper's vehicle. He saw the specific details. The last 3 digits of the license plate, 008. The telltale broken left headlight. Visible crash damage on the front end. And critically, the vehicle's position. Oriented facing downriver, pinned beneath the bridge structure, but sitting upright on its wheels. And one detail that became immediately important: the driver's side window was down.
And the confirmation about Whisper and Sandra.
Initial visual inspection confirmed Whisper was in the driver's seat. Juan also immediately confirmed Sandra was inside the vehicle. He noted the child seat was pushed all the way back against the passenger seat. However, and this was a professional, crucial call, Juan made the tactical decision not to disturb the remains or the immediate crash scene any further. His priority was confirmation and securing the scene underwater, not removal at that point. That would wait for the full recovery operation with law enforcement present.
Okay, so at this point, with confirmation, the family and the search team basically seized control of the operational logistics. A decision clearly born out of those 23 days of frustrating delays they'd already faced with official channels.
Absolutely. Richard's immediate decision, according to the logs, was just powerful and direct. Get it done.
And they implemented this tactical preemptive protocol.
Yeah, they decided to pre-rig the vehicle before officially notifying law enforcement for the recovery. This was a brilliant tactical move designed entirely to remove any potential excuses for bureaucratic delays.
Explain pre-rigging for our listeners. Why was doing that before calling the authorities so effective?
Okay, so pre-rigging involves a specialized diver, like Juan, going down and attaching high-strength, calibrated recovery straps and lines directly to the vehicle's frame and axles while it's still underwater. Normally, when law enforcement finds a submerged car, they have to wait. Wait for specialized county divers, wait for the heavy tow equipment, navigate all the liability issues for recovery in swift water. It takes time, lots of time.
Right.
By pre-rigging it, the volunteer team was essentially handing the sheriff's office a recovery operation that was, like, 80% complete. All they needed was an officer on scene to confirm everything and a specialized tow truck operator to execute the pull. It eliminated the main excuses for delays, waiting for specialized personnel and the lengthy underwater setup time.
So they were fast-tracking the whole process themselves. What steps did they take when they finally made the call?
Jared, one of the search team coordinators, he called the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office non-emergency line, and the communication was apparently very firm, very efficient, basically. The car is located, it is pre-rigged, we stress no divers are needed from your end, and we require only a deputy on scene and a heavy-duty tow truck specifically. They requested a rotator.
Okay, let's pause there. You mentioned a rotator earlier, too.
Yeah.
Why the specific need for a rotator tow truck? Why not just any heavy wrecker?
Good question. A rotator isn't your standard roadside tow truck. It's a massive, heavy-duty recovery vehicle. It's designed with this huge rotating boom that can swing 360 degrees and lift literally tens of thousands of pounds. When you're pulling a submerged car, heavy with water, possibly pinned under a bridge, in moving current, you need immense power, stability, and the ability to maneuver that vehicle out carefully without putting the tow operator or the bridge structure at risk. A standard wrecker just wouldn't have the capability or the finesse to extract a waterlogged vehicle from that specific, difficult position.
Got it. So requesting the rotator specifically was a clear signal. We know what's needed. We're ready for a heavy, specialized extraction. Just bring the right tool.
Exactly. And simultaneously, while coordinating law enforcement, they also secured environmental control of the scene.
They called the water district.
Yes. Sean, who represented the local water district and had been helpful, was called. He immediately agreed to start dropping the water flows in that section of the canal. Now, this process takes about an hour to really take full effect downstream, but it was absolutely critical. By reducing the water flow, the velocity of the current, they significantly minimized the pressure and resistance on the submerged car and the recovery lines.
Made it much safer for the tow operator.
Much safer, and allowed the tow truck operator, once they arrived, to work much more efficiently within that expected 1 to 2 hour arrival window.
The whole logistics chain, organized entirely by these civilian teams, was remarkably effective. The sheriff's office and CHP arrived pretty quickly thereafter.
Although the sources do note that Fresno apparently declined the courtesy call about the find, which, well, it unfortunately speaks volumes about those cooperation issues we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it does. But as the recovery preparation moved forward on scene, there was this moment of intense confusion and distress involving the initial efforts to open the car door.
Yeah, that was unsettling for everyone there. As the first responder, likely a deputy, attempted to pry open the driver's door, a body was suddenly seen rising up through the open sunroof of the car.
Oh, wow.
This immediately created intense anxiety. Some members of law enforcement on scene apparently speculated maybe it was a man, or even a third person somehow involved.
Which instantly threw Richard, Whisper's brother, into an emotional tailspin.
Understandably, after 23 agonizing days, he was trying, as he put it, to make peace with the accident. The sudden suggestion of a third person just resurrected the horrible specter of foul play all over again, something he desperately didn't want to face after finally getting some kind of closure. He'd apparently reached his absolute emotional limit.
But the confusion, thankfully, it was resolved pretty quickly. It wasn't foul play. It wasn't a third person. It was Whisper. What was the actual physical mechanism happening there?
It was straightforward, though really dramatic. Physics, hydrostatic pressure. When the car was submerged, the inside filled with water, right? So the pressure inside and outside was pretty much equalized. But when that first responder forced the door open, even just partially, it breached the seal. That created an immediate, powerful change in water pressure inside that confined cabin. The force of the water rushing out acted like a powerful pump, basically. It forcefully pushed Whisper's body up through the path of least resistance, which happened to be the open driver's side sunroof.
So the body that surfaced, it matched her clothing described earlier, the ripped jeans, the tank top. A tragic, Purely physical event caused by opening the door, not some new mystery.
Exactly. It must have been a terrifying moment for the family and the crew watching, but ultimately it just confirmed the tragic accident scenario they had spent weeks searching for.
So the search concluded. 23 days. It brought a painful but absolute resolution to the family's ordeal. The emotional weight of the discovery, while devastating, it provided that crucial certainty where there had only been paralyzing speculation.
Yeah, the closure for Vicky, Whisper's mother, was apparently immediate and profound. She expressed immense gratitude to the search team. She actually said, "You guys have helped me today to rest. She's not in the water." Meaning not in those other rivers and canals they'd searched earlier. That relief, just the certainty that they weren't potentially floating miles downriver or hidden somewhere else, that was the primary comfort the family needed at that moment.
And for Richard, the person who had really driven the search effort for those 23 days, the end just brought exhaustion and a necessary shift in focus.
Yeah, his life, which had been completely consumed 204/7 by coordinating the search, immediately had to pivot to making funeral arrangements. And he now faced the just impossible task of explaining this loss to his 8-year-old nephew and 3-year-old niece, who'd apparently been asking every single day about their mother and baby sister.
And it's important we remember the ripple effects, the complex emotional toll on the wider family, too. Specifically, you mentioned his 12-year-old stepson, who had already experienced significant loss in his young life, including the death of his own father years prior.
Richard shared this really heartbreaking anecdote, his stepson trying to console him, saying something like, "We'll be okay." It just highlights the impossible emotional burden placed on these children who, despite being so young, had to somehow process this immense tragedy while their main caregivers were just fighting for answers.
Reflecting on the entire methodology here, this case really stands out as an essential illustration of the power of synergy, how technology and dedicated volunteerism are often the crucial combination needed to overcome those systemic, bureaucratic hurdles we see in missing person searches.
The whole success hinged on marrying multiple data streams, didn't it? They used sophisticated sonar to detect the car. They combined that with precise phone ping data to isolate the exact area. And critically, they used that Google filter insight to confirm the motive for her unusual route.
And then all that high-tech evidence was validated by invaluable, low-tech local knowledge, like Chris's camera footage.
Exactly. Chris's footage refined the timeline, confirmed her direction of travel just before the ping zone. It all fit together.
And we absolutely have to recognize the role of these nonprofit organizations like Angels Recovery, like Adventures with Purpose, who are often forced to step in and fill the gap left by official agencies.
The dedication is just extraordinary. Juan, the diver. It's noted he completed something like 12 cold and swift water vehicle recoveries in just 1 year, often finding people miles downriver, doing work that official agencies sometimes refuse due to liability concerns, jurisdiction limits, or just lacking the immediate specialized gear and training.
The technical preparedness shown by these volunteer teams, their willingness to dive into dangerous, swift water, utilize their own advanced sonar, execute that really smart tactical move of pre-rigging the car, it allowed them to bypass the red tape that had stalled this case for over 3 weeks.
Their operational freedom, their specific expertise, that's what led to this resolution.
That really is the definition of dedication. They weren't just searchers, they were recovery experts. They understood the physics, the need for heavy gear like the rotator, the complex logistics like coordinating with the water district to drop the flow. They did the homework, basically, that the official agencies couldn't or maybe wouldn't prioritize in that time frame.
It's a tragic outcome, obviously, but
Yeah.
one that finally provided clarity and allowed the family to begin the long process of mourning.
And that brings us, I think, to our final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, the sources are clear. Whisper was apparently excited to be a mother, seemed happy at home, was actively trying to create, core memories for her children, yet she chose this extremely dangerous, evasive route, solely because of a minor legal warrant and a visible imperfection, a broken headlight on her car.
The fear of a minor traffic stop, the fear of interacting with authority that might detain her, might separate her from her sick baby. That fear caused her to abandon the known, safe highway for complex, dark, unfamiliar backroads she'd likely never driven before.
The internal calculations she made, however flawed, seemed simple in that moment of stress. The risk of an accident on the back roads probably felt less immediate, maybe less catastrophic in her mind, than the perceived certainty of legal trouble on the highway. The simple knowledge of the safer route, Highway 99, versus that profound fear of getting pulled over, it proved to be a fatal calculation.
And this raises a really important, maybe uncomfortable question for all of us. How often does the pervasive fear of even minor legal repercussions or just interactions with authority, especially maybe in communities with complex histories with law enforcement,
Yeah.
how often does that fear force otherwise well-meaning people into making catastrophic decisions they would never, ever intentionally choose?
In this case, it seems the anxiety about the system, the fear of that interaction, proved deadlier than the road itself. Something to think about.